Okay guys, for the past 6 months now, we've been keeping a secret from you. And the best part is, not one person noticed.
Pull the sail down. So we have had a problem with our sailboat ever since we first got it, actually. And that problem has to do with the rig and the standing rigging and the way that the mast is held up. We took the mast down when we first moved onto the boat and we shipped it to Florida. We had the rig rebuilt to the same lengths that the boat came with. But unfortunately our backstay ended up being too short somehow. And so we had the rigging company send us a longer one. Anyway, that was way back in like step 5 or something like that. And ever since, our mast has had a decent rake to it, which wasn't really an issue. The boat sailed okay, the mast was held up okay, but it meant that we couldn't really tension our rig the way it should be. And so we always had our shrouds a little bit looser than they probably should have been. And again, like we've sailed all the way across the ocean, it hasn't really been an issue, but we've been slowly researching and figuring out how best to fix that, because the problem, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but the problem is that our side shroud, the one that keeps the mast from going side to side and keeps the top of the mast in position, has a little bit of a bend in it at the spreader. So the tighter we make it, the more the mast bends rather than the tighter the rig gets. I could probably do a little bit of a drawing about that. It's been a long process to try to figure out how to fix it, what the correct course of action is going to be to fix it, and to start accumulating all the parts we need to fix it, including when we ordered our new head sail last year to have it a bit shorter so we could actually shorten the forestay. Because our sailboat doesn't actually have a turnbuckle on the forestay, so we can't simply just adjust it. We have to actually cut our forestay shorter, which is kind of a nerve-wracking thing to do because you only kind of get one shot at it. But now that we're here and we have this big long dock to work with, and it's not raining today, we've collected all the little bits we need to actually tackle this project, and it's sort of the first step in strengthening our rig and correcting that problem. So today we're going to be removing the head sail, taking down the forestay, and actually shortening the forestay by about 10 to 14 centimeters, and then putting it all back up, and hopefully that's going to take the rake out of our mast so we can actually tune our rig properly and we won't have sloppy shrouds when we're going to windward. We just flipped Coco off deck so we have some space to work, and the first thing we're going to be doing is pulling down the head sail.
You're the only one I'm missing. Help me take away the hole in my chest where my heart was, and disappeared when you left. This time, don't you feel it happening? This time, I swear you are feeling in my blood. Either I'm crazy.
How long ago did we rebuild this thing? Back in 2014. Even the barbecue paint's holding up pretty well.
Oh yeah, I remember we did that.
Spray painted this with barbecue paint. It's held up fine. The bearings feel pretty good. Someday we'll probably end up replacing this with like a modern one, but it ain't broke. Tensioning the backstay. Oh, that's much better. Much better. I think it's actually going to work. We added the extension into the backstay and slacked the turnbuckle off, and then used the spinnaker halyard to sort of like tighten it up as much as we could. And now our mast is much straighter already. We took out probably I don't know, 10 centimeters of rake or so at the top, maybe more, 15 centimeters. And now the top shroud stays exactly in the center of the mast through the spreader and all the way to the top of the mast. So when we tension it, it's actually going to be pulling the top of the mast down rather than the top of the mast back, which I think is going to help with our issues keeping our rig tight. In theory, it's going to work. Have enough length in the backstay that we can actually take out about 13 centimeters off our forestay. So next, I'm going to go up the top of the mast and pull the pin on our forestay so we can lower it onto this big long dock and then slide the cable out and start shortening everything. You want to haul me up the mast with a button?
That's me saying yes.
No more grinding. You're gonna have to get a different upper arm workout now.
Yeah. No need to grind and no need for you to climb on that blue ladder.
Hells yeah.
So.
All right, I need a pair of pliers and a harness. All right, next step is going to be to disassemble the stay lock down here and take the actual forestay cable out from inside the foil and then cut each one of them down, slide it back in, reinstall the stay lock and hoist it back up again and hope we get the measurements right.
You make it sound so easy.
Ugh, technically it is easy, as long as you don't fuck it up. Yes. Got it. Oh yeah. All right, now I can cut that. Dude, that had me worried for a while. I was not expecting like taking apart the stay lock to become the thing that almost canned this whole project. I think it's long enough for our forestay. It's our old backstay that was a little bit too short, but now that it's out, we can cut it off, slide the whole cable out, shorten the foil, shorten the cable, slide it all the way back in, install the new cone, tighten it all back up, and then hoist it again.
Yeah. Why was it giving issues coming out?
It's full of caulking to keep the water out. Normally, when you take one of these stay locks apart, you cut the cable right above the stay lock, and then you can use a punch and hammer the cable out. But because we can't cut above it and hammering the other end, it's too much flex. So yeah, I had to end up like prying and ripping it apart. But I'm glad it finally came loose. That could have been a nightmare. We'll have to add that to our 13.5 centimeters. All right, pulling the whole thing out now. How did I do that? I had to slide this out and cut it down by the length of the...
Oh, like cut that more?
This on the inside, because the swedge goes down inside. That's how I did it.
I guess that works.
Good to know that this is all still intact though. This is what actually like the whole thing spins around, right?
Help me, you're the only one I'm missing. Help me, take away the hole in my chest, where my heart was, it disappeared when you left. This time, don't you feel it happening? This time, I swear you are feeling my blood.
Okay, pause. Yeah, I need to help it out a little bit. Oh, there's like junk in there still. Ugh. Yucky. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
$50 feet's a long way to walk back and forth 100 times in a day. Alrighty, look at that beautiful thing.
Okay, well, while Dan is up the mass, or whenever he's on a board project mode, when I'm not out there helping him, I'm usually in here editing. And these days, I've been having a lot of fun finding new tricks and new techniques to implement in our videos.
Oh, are we about to do a Skillshare bit again?
A few episodes ago, we mentioned that we use something called Skillshare.
Oh, we're totally...
And a lot of you wanted to know more about it and wanted to know how we personally use it. So while I'm waiting for Dan, I figured I could share a little bit more details with you. So for those of you who don't know what it is, Skillshare is an online learning platform which is specifically designed to connect creative artists that have a skill they want to share and curious minds that want to expand their creativity.
Kika, you can't just say whatever you want.
I
Kika.
personally wish...
Kika. What the
I personally wish that I knew about Skillshare when we first started our YouTube channel because I knew absolutely nothing and it took us months to figure out what to do to create our first video. And little did I know there were actually classes on Skillshare about how to start editing on Final Cut. And I know it would have saved me so much time to create that video back in the day. Also, a lot of you have noticed that our videos have improved over the years, and some of that has to do with the fact that we upgraded our cameras and upgraded our filming equipment, but most of it is really just learning how to use the gear that we already have better. And we like to figure things out on our own as well, like everything else we do. But I also like going on Skillshare to learn new tips and to improve certain things like filming techniques and editing techniques. I sometimes try out new transitions. We also just recently got into color grading our footage, which means that we shoot everything in RAW now, which means that it's a lot more work for us, but the footage does look a lot better. And sometimes I also just love learning something completely different. So in the end, no matter what you're into, whether it's filming, editing, languages, or music, there's always something new that you can learn. And the cool thing about it too is that because Skillshare is specifically created as a learning platform, you don't get distracted by ads or end up getting lost in a rabbit hole. And after hours of searching for your harmonica tutorial, you end up somehow watching cat videos. Because, let's face it, we've all been there. So if you do want to check it out, I'll make sure to leave the link in the description below. Oh, and also remember that the first 1,000 of you to click the link will have a free trial to premium membership, so you can explore your creativity. Hello?
How could you? Skillshare is my segment and you didn't even
How did you get this number?
Hello, dum-dum, I'm literally in your head, but you don't
yeah.
listen to...
Ah! Well, Den is calling, so I gotta... Bye!
Well, the forestay and the furler went up well, and they're the perfect length it took out all the rake from our mast, so our mast is back to being perfectly straight, which these old boats, that's much more preferred. It's not designed to have a rake mast. So that's all good and sorted, but unfortunately our backstay, even though we added the little extension toggle, didn't have enough to compensate for the 13 centimeters we took off the forestay. So for right now, we've got a little galvanized shackle in there. We're not planning to sail with it that way. It was mostly just to see like how long we actually needed it. But I think it means we're gonna have to get a new piece of cable and build a longer backstay. So we're gonna do a little bit of poking around, and hopefully we can find some of this cable locally, and we'll be back in business. But sun's going down, so it's time to call it a night. I'm tired, it's been a long day.
So it's been about a week now since we've ordered our new backstay, and it just arrived this morning from a rigging shop in Oslo. So earlier today I hoisted Den up the mast, he removed the old backstay, replaced it with the new and shiny backstay, and now we finally have the rigging the way it should be. So we'll probably be spending the next couple of sails just adjusting and fine-tuning everything, but in the end, it's nice to know that our bent mast problem is officially fixed. But speaking of dent up the mast, remember we did say that we had a big secret that we've been keeping from you for the past couple of months. Well, it's more like a little secret at this point. Well, the secret's name is Max. Cliffhanger! Just kidding, I'm not going to do a cliffhanger, and I will share with you the secret. You probably have noticed how effortlessly Den has been going up and down the mast these past couple of times. Well, that's because Max is our new shiny windlass.
So 6 months ago, we received a box. Wait, no, a year ago, while we were in the UK designing our bowsprit, we received an email.
Welcome. You've got mail.
That email led to a pretty long conversation about how the marine industry as a whole is starting to slowly shift towards electric boats like ours, and of those electric boats, not a whole lot of systems are compatible because most of us have a 48-volt DC main battery bank. And most of the equipment in the marine industry is 12 or 24 volts. So we get around that by having what's called a DC to DC converter, which takes our 48 volt main house bank and converts it through a little magic blue box to 12 volts so we can run our refrigerator and our lights and our electronics. However, these little DC converters aren't powerful enough to run some of the larger loads like air conditioning, water heaters, or electric winches or electric windlasses. And as you guys might know, our history with windlasses is long and kind of frustrating. When we started off on the boat, we didn't have a windlass. So for the first year or so, we were hauling up the chain by hand. It was a big workout, and it meant that we never went on day sails. If the anchor was coming up, we were going somewhere and we were gonna drop it a day or two later because day sailing was out of the question. Then we got a old windlass that had a seized motor off of a boat that was being scrapped, and we managed to find a 48 volt scooter motor on eBay, which we sort of just put on the bottom of it. And that worked okay. It definitely had some issues along the way, but since there was no other options, we stuck with it and it's gotten us by. So back to those email conversations. They happened to be with a rep from a company called Maxwell, and they just happen to make some of the best marine windlasses in the industry. So after listening to us rant about our windlass troubles, they agreed to work with us on a prototype. So yeah, where was I? 6 months ago, we received a box, and in it was the world's first 48 volt windlass. But like Kika said, we had to keep this a bit of a secret because it was still in the testing prototype phase. The guys at Maxwell built a custom motor for it, and they did some initial testing and then sent it out to us to install it on our boat and spent a few months really putting it through its paces. So last summer, while we were in the Netherlands installing our new bow roller, we took that time to also rip out our old junkyard Frankenstein windlass and install our new shiny 48 volt one. We also installed an up and a down switch in the cockpit along with a chain counter, so from the helm we can lower and raise the anchor without going to the bow, and we also know exactly how much chain we've dropped and when the anchor is about to come back in, which makes anchoring single-handed so much easier. We chose the version that also had what's called a capstan, which looks like a regular winch on top, which means we can open up the clutch so that it's not moving our anchor or chain, and we can actually use that capstan to bring in a kedge anchor or to hoist our dinghy up on deck or to even hoist me up the mast, which works really well. But if for some reason we don't have any power or if we need to drop a lot of chain really quickly in deep water, we can still open up that clutch and let the chain free fall. The chain counter still keeps track of how much chain we have out, so it works quite well. And if we ever had to anchor without power for some reason, we could still do it. So after spending a few days lying on my back up in the V-berth getting the new windlass installed, we continued sailing north, as you know, up through the Netherlands into Norway. We spent all summer sailing through Norway and testing the windlass and making sure everything works as expected. And now that the testing phase is done, we're happy to announce that Maxwell actually has a 48 volt windlass for sale, and we can share our little secret with the world. So like we've said, the windlass on our boat is 48 volt DC, but Maxwell also makes the same windlass with or without the capstan, and also in 12 volts and 24 volts. So if you don't happen to have an electric boat, you can still install one of these windlasses on your boat. And now anyone else with an electric boat who has a 48 volt bank like ours, which is slowly becoming the standard for electric boats, now can enjoy the pure bliss of not having to haul their anchor up by hand. So a huge shout out to the guys at Maxwell for helping us prototype and develop and get this thing out there. And that's pretty much it for this one. So I hope you guys liked it. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.